to my pull. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Engaging with PICARD on the Movers and Shakers Unlimited Network. I am your host, Josh Pritchett Jr. of the Northern Virginia Star Trek Meetup Group, and I have a very special guest joining us today to break down this really fascinating episode of PICARD. He is the director and head of the Geek Night Out meetup in the Washington, D.C. area. Please welcome Larry Waldman. Thank you for coming, Larry.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Good to
Thanks,
see
Josh.
you. Glad you could come by and join us this morning. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the meetup that you run and how long it's been in operation?
It's been in operation for over 10 years. I think I've been head of it for about 7. It was started by a wonderful woman named Carrie, and she decided to move on to other things and headed it off to me, and I've been running it ever since. We do a lot of different things. Right now, post-pandemic, we're mostly doing movies, but we've done a few other things here and there. Like trivia nights, happy hours, that sort of thing.
And what do you guys got coming up now post-pandemic?
Well, this week there is a science comedy night at the DC Improv, and in a few weeks, at the end of April, we're going to a Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie party at the Alamo, where they give you props and you quote along with the movie and do all kinds of fun things.
Okay, well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode of Star Trek PICARD. As always, this will have spoilers, so you've been warned. So where we left off in the episode before, 7 and not Gerard,
Rafi?
7 and Raj were trying to stop the bus to rescue Cristobal before he was taken to be deported. Girardi had a battle of wills with the Borg Queen to try to get her to help them, but then she broke her word to the Borg Queen that she would not, be her, handmaiden or whatever, would not just, talk with her, give her communication. And Picard had found a watcher who looked like a human version of his Romulan friend, Loris, from the future. So where we're at, Picard has gone with the watcher to the watcher's headquarters, which is a Los Angeles apartment. The Borg Queen has started tapping into the local cell phone towers just to listen to voices, and then she comes up with an idea which involves her summoning the local gendarmes or French police to come to her assistance. And 7 and Raj decide to go in, and they're about to launch their plan to rescue Cristobal, and it involves them stopping the bus, creating an EMP surge that causes the bus to stop. Then they go in, stun the guards, and release Cristobal and all the prisoners. Meanwhile, back at Chateau Le Picard, the Borg Queen has captured this French police officer and is holding him by one of her tentacles. Girardi has found an old shotgun in the villa that she takes back to the ship. And the Borg Queen is like, you can either kill me or kill him, but somebody's getting, I'm going to get what I want. And ultimately, Girardi decides to shoot the Borg Queen. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Picard is engaging with the Watcher who we find out is actually called a supervisor. I believe we have a photograph in her apartment, and this ties back to something in the original Star Trek series from an episode called Assignment Earth. Larry, would you like to jump in now?
Sure. Yeah, he in Assignment Earth, they met up with a character named Gary Seven, who was basically trying to keep Earth's history intact. But in Star Trek Picard, they meet up with this other supervisor. Her name is Talon, and she is there to help with the future of a particular individual who is turns out to be Picard's ancestor and an astronaut. And she is supposed to go on a Europa mission, but she's also suffers from anxiety and depression and is going to see a therapist about that. And it turns out when Picard and Talon look up, spy in on one of her sessions, they discover that the therapist is actually Q, who is sort of telling her, pushing her not to go on the mission. Then it goes. This episode cuts a lot back and forth between characters. So they cut back to the Homeland Security bus, and Ralphie and Seven decide to use the EMP from the tricorder to stop the bus, and which helps the people on the bus, including Chris, start to fight their way out with the help, of course, Seven and Ralphie. Then so they rescue Chris, and as they rescue and as the other drivers get off the bus, Ralphie mistakes one of them for their friend who was killed in the second episode. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. But Elnor, excuse me. And when she realizes later that about the mistake. Then it comes back to the apartment. No, actually, then it cuts to they introduce a new character who is played by Brent Spiner, Dr. Adam Song, who's trying to get funding for a genome project. And he's standing in front of the board of directors to get the funding. And one of them is played by one of the board of directors, played by Leah Thompson, who directed the previous two episodes. And the board decides to deny the funding because he had, without permission, done human experiments on soldiers in the past, and they frowned upon that, so they revoked his license. We're also introduced to Song's daughter, who suffers from a disease where she can't go outside because she gets sick if she goes outside, and he was using the funding for the research for was trying to find a cure for her. But he tells his daughter that not to worry, that he's going to find a cure soon. So he's basically lying to her to try to comfort her. When he comes to his computer, he just sees a mysterious message from someone saying that they can help, and tells Dr. Song to go to the 3D printer, where it prints out a kind of a business card with the letter Q on it. When he gets back, then it cuts back to the vineyard, and you already went over that part with the cop. Let's see. Then Song actually goes out and meets Q at a restaurant, and Q offers Song a cure for his daughter. Song is of course a little skeptic, but he goes back to his daughter with the cure and starts doing research on it. Then they cut back to the apartment of the supervisor, and Talon and Picard discuss what Q is doing. Why is he trying to manipulate Renee? And this is probably not a good time for this. I mean, she's supposed to go on a mission to Europa, and they also mentioned this gala that they could go to quietly manipulate her. Let's see.
Yeah.
The cuts back to Song and his daughter, and he gives her the cure. After he researches it, finds out that the cure is stable, so he decides to give it to her. And she steps outside, and it seems to be working. She's not getting sick, so she does the first thing she's always wanted to do when she's outside, which was go swimming. So she goes swimming, and after she gets out, the cure stops, and she starts getting sick again, and they rush her into the house. And so the cure was only temporary. Then it cuts back to Chris, Ralphie, and Seven being beamed back aboard the ship by Agnes. They find that the Borg Queen is dead, that Agnes shot and killed the Borg Queen, and that there's this unconscious cop there. Agnes explains that she treated the cop after he'd been kidnapped, and also erased his memory. And they decide they probably should move the cop back to his car while he's unconscious. At that point, Talon and Picard arrive onto the ship, and they see the crew bringing the unconscious cop back to the car. And he says, "Oh, it's normally not like this."
I liked having that scene. Talon says, "Why is your crew dragging a dead cop across the street?" And Picard's like, "Oh, I'm sure he's not dead."
Yeah.
Such British humor. But I think one thing before we move on, we need to mention who Adam Song's daughter is. It's Ezra Rhinos.
Right.
Rhinos is back. And yes, so she's becoming definitely Brett's protege in the department of how to play multiple characters in the same show. She's getting very good at that. So Adam Song goes back to Q and says that the cure broke down, and Q's like, "Well, I do have the total cure, but I'm having a little bit of problem with someone called PICARD." And apparently, as we saw in the episode before, Q tried to do his thing on Renee Picard to, make her more doubtful, make her want to, drop out of the mission. But it didn't work, and something is blocking Q's powers. And I think we're supposed to assume it is the supervisor. It is Supervisor Talon is somehow blocking him, though we don't know how. We do not know that. Apparently she didn't seem to be all that aware of Q until Picard pointed it out. So something else is going on here. And we seem to have a lot of unanswered questions, but we have a lot of things going on all at once. So as we draw to the end of the episode, they've gotten into the gala. Thanks to Girardi's been able to get herself arrested by the gala security people. And we find out something about Agnes's final encounter with the Borg Queen right after she shot her. And it turns out that the Borg Queen has infested her. She has not completely assimilated her, but she is now in Agnes's head. And once again, we are still in this kind of Silence of the Lambs type story with Agnes and the Borg Queen. And this is going back to some of the rumors and predictions that have been circulating the internet about what's going to happen to Agnes this season, and her and the connection to the Borg Queen we saw in the first episode, and why the Borg Queen was dressed like the love child of the Borg Queen and Darth Vader. So we got a lot going on there. So I think we covered most of the episode. What are some of our awesome and not so awesome moments? I'll let you start with the awesome there, Larry.
One thing that I thought was awesome, might be just for me, was when the Borg Queen called to get help from the cops. It kind of reminded me of the scene from Return of the Living Dead, which was "Send more cops."
Well, the Borg Queen does like brains.
Yes.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, her and Hannibal Lecter both. Me and a friend have been talking a lot about that. The whole thing. That they both like brains. For me, I think two of the more awesome things that were going on. Well, I'll get into a third one, but one, this callback to Star Trek Enterprise, where it turns out that the Sung family, before they got into cybernetics and AIs, seemed to be very involved in genetics. If you recall, Data's great-grandfather appeared, also played by Brett Spiner, in season 4 of Star Trek Enterprise. And he was a geneticist who had started creating genetically enhanced, what they called augments, who were humans with enhanced strength, intelligence, aggressiveness, everything that they would need to become what he thought would be essentially being the next level of humanity. And the first thing they did was they captured a Klingon ship in order to free him. And that was really good. That was a really great story arc. So if anybody has not seen it, please go back and watch the season 4 of Star Trek Enterprise. It was really quite awesome. I like that callback. I like the callback to Gary Seven because, Gary Seven was a little bit of history here. He appeared in an episode of the original Star Trek series called Assignment Earth, which was the season 2 finale. And originally it was supposed to be kind of a spin-off with this character named Gary Seven, who was an agent of an alien race that we heretofore never have really figured out who they were. And he is assigned this mission to protect humanity and set it on a certain course that will save it. And in other words, he was like, it was to lead into to the world of the Federation. And he was played by the actor Robert Lansing, who appeared in many episodes of Star Trek as various characters. He played one of Kirk's minions in the Mirror universe in Mirror Mirror. He was the greedy millionaire capitalist in the season 1 finale of Next Generation, The Neutral Zone, who was able to help Picard realize that the Romulans didn't know what was actually attacking their colonies, as we all later found out it was the Borg. He was, a lot of Star Trek fans have had a lot of fascination with this character and wanting it to go into places. He's appeared in several of the novels, including a great 3-part novel story arc by Greg Cox that came out about 20 years ago called The Eugenics War, in which Gary had apparently taken a young Khan Noonien Singh as his protege, trying to help him direct his abilities to doing something positive. But of course, that did not work out, and we kind of saw what happened there. One other thing, and this is on a personal level that I thought was quite awesome, the fact that they brought up mental health as an issue. That this is not something we're going to gloss over. We're just going to have a quick session over at Counselor Troy's to talk about why it is you're not doing so well today. This was, I think, really well done to go into the ideas of depression and which is a real problem for a lot of people. And I'm glad that they pointed out that depression can be a very debilitating illness for millions of people, and especially in humans, that it makes their lives a lot more difficult. So I'm really thankful that they went into that this week and talked about it. So Larry, would you like to? Is there anything else awesome, or would you like to go ahead and talk a little bit about some things you didn't find that were not so awesome?
Well, I mean, I did like some of the appearances. Like they had Leah Thompson show up again, uh, and bringing back Spiner and the actress plays his daughter, playing
Isa, yeah,
Isa, yeah, playing different versions of those characters, kind of. Uh, those were those were good.
yeah.
Um, there also I read somewhere that the writer was also one of the big writers for the TV series 12 Monkeys, and he's actually been putting in 12 Monkeys references in the card show. Like there's a company that has been mentioned that's been was in the 12 Monkeys series.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit, even though I love the original movie, I have not seen the 12 Monkeys TV show, but it's now on my list of things I should definitely check out.
Yeah.
Especially this week, given what we learned this week about Bruce Willis and his struggles. So a shout out to him. Moving into things we didn't find so awesome. This is something that's been nagging me. I've talked with a lot of friends about this. Even though there's a lot of cool stuff going on, there's a lot of action, a lot of shout outs to earlier Star Trek stuff like TOS, Star Trek 4, Star Trek Enterprise. It doesn't seem like the story itself is moving anywhere. We just keep getting a lot of these cool things. We're picking up this cool stuff, these cool shout outs, these cool references to things. But what's going on? Where is this going? Why is Q's powers unable to affect Rene Picard? What is he trying to do? What does he mean that Picard caused all of this stuff to happen and that we saw in the evil future? And how did humanity go from being this, one of the light parts of the galaxy to being this tyrannical, xenophobic species that has pretty much done everything it can to wipe out as many other races in the galaxy? What did he mean by that? Because it seems like Q's making most of this happen. And what does this have to do with Renee? Obviously, they make mention to the fact that Renee, when she goes to Europa, discovers an organism, the first alien life form that humanity has found. What does that have to do with what's going on? It's driving me crazy. Please answer something here. Give us.
I actually have a theory.
Just don't keep dropping stuff and teasing us. Actually get something. Make the story move. Tell us something. So, Larry,
I actually kind of have a theory about that, but we'll go on when we get to theories. I'll bring that up again.
Yeah, definitely. So, what did you think was not so awesome?
A lot of it seemed coincidental, like would the cop actually go on to the spaceship once he found it? I'm pretty sure I wouldn't. I'm kind of glad they did address this. One thing that I thought was not so awesome was Agnes is a really sound sleeper. I mean, the cop was on this radio right next to her and she didn't wake up, but then the Queen really had to shout at her to wake her up. So that I kind of like that they nodded to that problem. Yeah. The other thing I thought was Dr. Soon's daughter happening. It just happens that she has this disease, so she can be manipulated by Q. It would just the timing of it seems coincidental, a little too coincidental. That this happened, but otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good episode.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, one thing about it, and this may go back more towards the awesome category, is I like the fact that it does seem like they are laying the groundwork for the eugenics wars.
Yeah.
In this, I mean, clearly, I know in the original Star Trek they said that they occurred sometime in the 1990s, and certainly the Greg Cox books did make reference to that even though they came out in 2001, and clearly the eugenics wars hadn't happened. But he still made it sound like they had. And I had to wonder, are they just kind of moving that up? Is that, okay, they take place sometime after 2024? And of course, yeah, they did make reference to the fact that Adam's song experimented on soldiers already. And what was the effect of that? Are there a bunch of guys already walking around who have been augmented physically and mentally? What's the deal here? Is one of them going to be Khan? We know, if you've been following some things in some of the Star Trek news, Nick Meyer, the director of Star Trek 2 and 6 and the co-writer of Star Trek 4, has hinted that he is returning to Star Trek again, this time to do some unknown project. And some people have thought, well, is he going to do a Eugenics Wars miniseries? What's going to happen here? Maybe, we haven't seen his name listed in any of the credits as far as I know, but maybe he's going to show up to write an episode or two. Maybe it's going to tie into that, or maybe it's not. We don't know yet. But you have to wonder, because certainly, I guess it's Adam's grandson, who Brett played on Enterprise. Certainly he was obsessed with eugenics, and he was trying to replicate that whole thing with Khan and trying to bring that back again to try to prove that it could be done, that it would work, that that augmented humans didn't necessarily mean evil ones, that there was just mistakes made. And I like the fact that he's not just some maniacal villain, that he actually has some dog in this fight, that he's trying to save his little girl, and he's trying to, well, it's not a little girl, but his daughter, and he's trying to save her and cure this awful illness that she's got, because it's something very extreme that makes her basically allergic to sunlight. And it was really fascinating. And obviously, it kind of ties back to the whole thing about how we are destroying the world, making it uninhabitable, making it dangerous for our children. And clearly Song's daughter is a victim of this. So what else did you think, Larry?
I one of the things I did like about it, the ongoing themes that they've started, like mental health and family and being people together and feeling alone and depressed. And it's better to be with a group, and sometimes maybe that isn't the case. We might see more with Agnes and the Queen. I like that they're doing those themes.
Yeah, I think that does humanize the Borg Queen a little bit more. Is that okay? She has this need. That this is more to it than just her ruling the universe. This is about her. She needs people. She needs things. She needs these conversations going on. It's like she's a social media junkie, and so she can't be without these conversations and things. And even though everybody's been assimilated and enslaved to her will in the collective, she needs to hear their voices, even if they're just saying her opinions back to her, that she's kind of in an echo chamber, which makes her definitely more of a psychopath. I think that she's, needs this, that this is her need, her will, her desire to have this thing going on around her, this assimilation. And I think it's brilliant. And, I think she's really a very fascinating character since, become more than, the way we initially saw her. Because I won't lie, I did have some reservations about the Borg Queen the first time I saw her in Star Trek First Contact, because we'd never had reference to a more individualized central leader in the Borg collective. But I guess for the Borg, it had to start with somebody. There had to be a first Borg. So it makes sense that it would be this one person who continues to be represented by different avatars throughout the centuries that are constantly improving itself and getting stronger. And it's very possible that, before this is all over, we're going to have Agnes a Borg, whatever that's, obviously we've gotten the hints about that, but you never know.
Right.
There have been a lot of hints going on about who is under that mask. I mean, right now, Agnes is in the lead, but it could be Talon. It could be Sung's daughter.
Right.
Don't know. So that's going to be rather interesting. So what do you got as far as some other theories for us, Larry?
Okay. I have a theory about why Q doesn't have his powers yet and what's going on with him. My theory is it's because the Q continuum doesn't exist yet. So he doesn't have his powers because of that. And the event on the 15th not only gives birth to the two different timelines, the Federation or the Confederation, but it gives birth to the Q continuum and what that's going to be like. And I have a feeling, in a way, we're not dealing with just one Q, but two Qs. One is the Confederation Q, the other is the Federation Q, and they may even be inhabiting the same form. So the one is fighting for the Confederation future, the other's fighting for the Federation future. That's one theory I have. I also thought maybe there's actually a third timeline that was introduced, which was the Borg showing up. And that was if the Borg Queen actually wins this. That's what we saw at the first episode was the result of that. That timeline is the Borg has taken over everything. And they need Picard to go back to help create that possibility. And also would also explain why, if it's the Q thing, if it gives birth to the Q continuum, why the Q is so interested in Picard.
I don't think this is. I think. Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that the Q continuum has already been in existence. I think Picard has been pretty much just of interest to the Q that we've known all this long. But I think your other predictions are spot on. I'm not sure. I mean, you could be right. I could be wrong. But given the fact that time is, according to the Q, is not linear, that it could go anyway. Yeah, maybe this is the event that causes the Q. But I do think you're exactly right about there are two Qs that are competing here within each other. There's the one we've always known, and then there's this other Q from another reality that is trying to ensure that the Confederation happens, that the xenophobic humans occur, and then you've got the other Q who is trying to help save Picard, who's trying to save the timeline he knows. So I think there's a real possibility. And also, this idea that, okay, one of these timelines could very well be, okay, the Borg, and that they take over the whole galaxy, and that they need to go to a certain point to ensure that Picard causes this thing to happen. Okay, I had not considered that, but that does sound sort of interesting. That could be what's going on here. We certainly seem to have a lot of the same elements. And at some point, somehow they have to find a way to resolve these and bring them all together. But as Picard said in episode 2, Q, you don't look well at all. That something is definitely very wrong with Q. One theory, and I've had this going on, is what if the Q continuum is dying? What if it's this it's been around for billions of years, but now somehow at the beginning of Earth's 25th century, it's starting to die? Is it because, and could it be because some sort of virus has occurred? Are they at war with the Borg, maybe? Or has the Confederation done something to them? I mean, given the fact that the Confederation seems obsessed with destroying all life that is not humanity, they might very well have encountered the Q in some capacity and realized this is a really big threat for us. We have to find a way to destroy them. And they've found a way to unleash something that could kill the continuum. Although what that could be, I have no idea. But it is something that we need to consider and to look for going forward into the next few episodes. So, what are some other theories you think we'll see in the next few episodes?
Well, I mean, I thought you brought up an interesting thing about the eugenics stuff. That would be that's an interesting theory to bring forward. That could happen. I mean, it seems kind of likely. I think that there's going to be a lot more of almost multiple personality stuff showing up, like with what's happening with Agnes and the Borg Queen, and people seeing things at other places, like with Ralphie seeing. I keep forgetting his name. I'm sorry. The Romulan character.
Eleanor.
Yes,
Eleanor. Yeah.
Eleanor.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to go into that more as the series goes on.
Yeah. I think that is, I think Rafi is definitely, she has this need to be a protector, a mother figure, because her own relationship with her own child did not go the way it should have.
Right.
So she's been, Eleanor's been kind of her second chance to try to have the relationship she didn't get to have. I mean, we saw in season 1, she was trying to reconnect with her son, but he didn't want to do that. He didn't feel up to doing that. So Eleanor became her surrogate son over the 2 years that between the end of season 1 and this season.
Right.
We know that, I mean, if you've read the book, Last Best Hope, which does apparently tie into the continuity of events between more or less a few years after where we left the Next Generation crew off at and where we began PICARD, we know that Rafi had a child and a husband and a career in Starfleet, and she was balancing all those. But PICARD had asked her to be his second in command and trying to lead the evacuation of the Romulan Empire. And it took more and more time, and she spent more and more time away from home. And finally, her whole marriage fell apart, and the destruction of Romulus without being able to save the Romulan people, or the majority of the Romulan people, left her in a very bad place. So, yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about mental illness, and that Rafi is clearly a person that does have mental health problems, and that she wants to belong. And I think you're right about this whole theme of people needing to belong to one another, because we have Rafi and Seven, that they're trying to connect. They're trying to make this connection, but it's really hard because both of them have a lot of personal scars, but they want to be with each other in some way. We have Chris, who's, he tried to have a formal relationship with Agnes, but Agnes has a lot of problems that he could not get past. And, he, has a starship. He has, he's back on the whole Starfleet course that he was on many years before. And now he's a captain of a brand new vessel. And he's trying to get back to that. Agnes, who clearly has also had connection issues, that she has wanted, and that she's always felt alone, that she's been left out of things. And now the Borg Queen is kind of like, hey, Agnes, come here. I'm ready to connect with you. I can totally relate to everything you're going through. And, kind of being a la like a cult leader kind of thing, which is kind of, I guess, what the Borg is. It is a cult in a way. I think, and then, of course, ultimately we have Picard himself, that he's made a lot of friendships. He's been a captain of several crews. He's been a mentor, as we've seen in things like Lower Decks and such, where he is, clearly a lot of officers who've served underneath him have gone on to be Starfleet captains or very prominent people because of their time with Picard, because of learning from him. He is, but he has never had that personal thing. He's never had, it's been hinted at that he had relationships or that he tried to have relationships, obviously with Beverly Crusher and things like that. But something's always stopped him. And now that we're seeing all these hints about, okay, clearly Jean-Luc's parents did not have a very good relationship, and it has affected him in more ways than I think most people realized, or even he realized. And this has kind of gone back to some interviews that Patrick Stewart has done, where he has talked about his own family and what happened there and how it affected him and it affected his father and his parents' relationship. So we, I think that's been great. And we've had this running thing going on all season, and hopefully they'll build on it. So what else you got for us today, Larry?
One other thing I should bring up was that when it wasn't that Agnes was feeling lonely, that the Borg Queen was able to manipulate her into. I mean, he kept trying to manipulate her, saying, "You won't be alone if you let me in." It wasn't that; it was the fact that the Queen was the only way they could get home.
Yes.
And I thought that was an interesting thing to have happen. It wasn't the loneliness; it was getting home that did it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, the Borg Queen being the super genius that they needed, who could see the patterns and timelines in the way that Spock could, that could help them slingshot around the sun and get to the appropriate time period, either in the past or the future. How are we going to explain that? And is Picard going to realize that, wait a minute, what's going to happen here? What are we going to do? How are we going to fix? How are we going to get back to our time? I mean, obviously, Picard, being the great historian that he is, knows that there's more than one way. The slingshot maneuver was just one way. There's always the Guardian of Forever. I'm sure he could find that. Maybe he's thought about that, but I think that they're trying to handle one problem at a time. And right now where they're at is, okay, we got to get Cristobal back. Okay, we got that done. Now we have to stop Q from interfering with Picard's ancestor and make sure the Europa mission happens. Mm-hmm. But obviously we as an audience know that there's more going on here. We know that and Picard says this is this time period is very confusing because we have so many things that happen, and it seems like a lot of records were just lost. And it's like, okay, this is surprising because, okay, given the fact we live in this internet age where history is supposed to continue to exist in some form that recounted history. That how was it that by the 22nd century so many things got so jumbled up and confusing? Is it because there is a convergence of these timelines at this point in the 21st century, in the 2020s, that just make everything kind of confusing, and a lot of different things are going on at once, and that maybe all these different timelines start at this point.
Right.
and that this is the real turning point. And how do they know which event is going to lead them back to the Federation instead of the Confederation, or a reality in which the Borg have taken over the whole galaxy by the 25th century?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know yet. So, that a lot of that is going on here. So, but at any rate, what else? What are some other thoughts you got before we get into wrap ups?
I'm wondering with the start of the next episode if the Borg Queen is going to do anything once Agnes starts to hack the computer.
Yeah, I mean, because what benefits the Borg Queen the most is obviously taking over the internet, the networks, everything, to try to assimilate humanity and this be her new launching point, or even to contact the Borg collective that's still in the Delta Quadrant somewhere. But given that existing human technology, that would take years to do.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she would start assimilating right away, so that when the rest of the collective arrived, that, oh, hey, we've got a fully functioning collective here in the Alpha Quadrant.
Mm-hmm.
But we keep talking about the genetics. I mean, are we going to run into an early version of Khan?
Right.
And we only have, I guess 4 or 5 more episodes this season, and then we've got another 10 for season 3, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. There is one other thing I'd like to mention. I don't have the picture right now to show, but there was a group photo taken right after they had wrapped up an episode where they had Patrick, Jonathan Frakes. Oh, by the way, we forgot to mention Jonathan Frakes directed this episode.
Right.
Yes, the great one himself is back. Jonathan Frakes was in this photo. Marina Sirtis, Counselor Troy, was in it. Ezra Boros was in it.
Mm-hmm.
LeVar Burton was in it.
Yeah.
And Michael Doran was in it. So, what's going on there with them? I mean, that's a hint that, okay, they're going to show up. Now, Michael has only said that he is willing to do Worf if Worf is a significant part of something. He doesn't want to just come in, spend 2 hours getting makeup put on, and only have like a couple minutes of stuff. He wants to actually be in it. Nor is he going to appear as, whereas Talon is a human version of Laura's, who is working as a supervisor. Is Michael going to be playing a human version of Worf that's a supervisor, or is Worf finally going to make his appearance? Don't know. Could be. I've been sort of hinting about that all throughout this series, but I mean, I guess you figured out from the top of the show, I'm a huge Klingon fan, so always hoping. So
I had read, I don't know which plaque it was, but in the boardroom scene, one of the plaques was a reference. The name of one of the plaques was a reference to Worf's human family.
The Rishinkos.
Rishinkos, yes.
Yes. So, I also have one other thought, and this goes back to Picard's father. If you remember the episode Tapestry, in which we see a vision of Picard's father and him saying that he was trying to protect him from going to Starfleet Academy, and then Picard had disobeyed him and had left and joined Starfleet. I'm starting to wonder, did Picard's father, was he a member? Was he in Starfleet? Obviously, Picard's father is somebody he does not talk about very much.
No.
And we do know that, consider the fact that they seem to be mining a lot of elements from Patrick Stewart's own personal life at this point for, stuff. And I think he's encouraging them to do this, is given the fact that Patrick Stewart's real life father was an RAF pilot during World War II, are we going to find that out? And this is just something he doesn't want to talk about, and no one's ever mentioned it with him, that, oh, hey, your father did this, Jean-Luc, or something. But that's just, I know we're getting into the weeds here, but at any rate, we head on. Would you like to promote some more things about the Geek Night Out group? Tell us what you got coming up.
Well, this week is the science comedy night at the DC Improv, and at the end of the month is the um, uh, Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie party at the Alamo. In a couple of months is Awesome Con. We look forward to that. I will probably start doing more in-person events, like maybe a happy hour or possibly a zoo excursion. That's that kind of thing. Stay tuned.
Okay. Well, I am going to go ahead and promote a few things from my meetup group, the Northern Virginia Star Trek. Oh, I'm sorry, Larry. Before I get into that, Larry, how can people join Geek Night Out?
Meetup.com/geek night NITE out.
Okay. And we will post a link to that on our website to help people come find you. It's a great group. I've been able to come to a few events, not as many as I'd like. As far as my own meetup group, the Northern Virginia Star Trek meetup group, we are having a lunch at 1 p.m. at Blackfin's in Merrifield. If you're interested in joining, just come on over to meetup.org, look for the Northern Virginia Star Trek meetup group, and sign up. And we'll be there at 1 o'clock till 3, having lunch and talking about upcoming events. Our next big one will be May 7th to see the new Marvel movie, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Speaking of multiverses, by the way, which seems to be a big theme now in stuff. So we got that to look forward to. And then we will also, we also have a number of other meetups planned for the remainder of the year, including Shore Leave, Awesome Con, and a few others that we're happy to talk about. Or if you just want to come and meet fellow Trekkies who share your love of all things Star Trek or science fiction or superhero, feel free to come join either one of our groups. We're always happy to meet new friends. So, yes. So, Larry, as we get ready to wrap things up, I want to thank you again for
It was fun.
joining us today. I'm glad you had a great time. I hope you'll be able to come back and join us again on one of our either Star Trek Picard or one of our other review shows that we have here at Movers and Shakers Unlimited. So how can people reach you other than just the meetup group?
Mostly just that. I mean, I am on Facebook, but those are more personal pages. But, yeah, mostly just through the meetup right now.
Okay. And as always, my book, my short story collection, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, still available on Amazon and Kindle. I'm hoping to have a table at Shore Leave later this summer where I will be selling copies, or if you've already bought a copy, please come by and I'll sign it for you there. I'm also at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook, which I'm happy to, chat with you about all things Star Trek or prosthetics related. When I say prosthetics, I mean like makeup effects, how to turn yourself into a Klingon or a Cardassian or something like that. Or if you just want to, tell me something I might have missed in this week's episode or previous episodes, feel free to let me know. And as always, I hope everybody here has a wonderful and safe week. We will be back next week at a little bit later time with a different guest host. I think you're all going to want to tune in for that. And for now, live long and prosper, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.